Hi, Mr. Christoph. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I really appreciate it. So, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. I'm super excited to doing the podcast with you today and learn more about yourself, your journey, and also the topic we're going to discuss, which is work-life balance, which is really, really important topic to discuss, I think, is nowadays because we overworked ourselves, then we get burned out, then we feel like quitting on certain things, and we don't find like a happiness. It affects our personal life, social life, and other aspect of our life. So before we get into that, I want to know more about you. Our audience would love to know more about you. Like, where did you choose start getting into like a business and entrepreneurship? Is that you always wanted to do in your life, or just like accidentally happen in a entrepreneurial journey?
Yes, no, it was a journey. Absolutely. I originally grew up in Zurich, Switzerland, so much closer to where you are than where
Yeah.
I'm at today. Um, I was a teacher there, and I have a BA in business from that country. Many years ago, I moved to the US to study theology,
Mhm.
and so I have a master's degree in theology and been in pastoral ministry for over 20 years. And then back in 2010, I was invited to a men's group, and one of the guys in the group was a coach. And so we started having conversations. And so several months after I met him, I was finally like, this sounds really exciting. How can I get trained to do that work? And he said, well, it's really funny that you should ask. I'm just transitioning from coaching people to training new coaches.
Right.
So kind of became his first student, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, as you may know, and as the listeners may know, when you have your certification or your degree, that means you really don't know anything. You realize how little you know.
Yeah.
And that's when the real learning curve started. I started to surround myself with experts in the industry, like John Assaraf, Christian Michelson, and then Brian Tracy, who really became my mentor. I
Mhm.
was certified by him about 3 or 4 years ago as a time management master. I
Right.
learned a lot from him. A lot of what he taught in his course, I already knew or haven't had an idea, so it was reaffirmed. And also learned a lot of new stuff, and so that brought value that I can then bring to my clients.
Yeah.
Also, most people have never heard my name, but Brian Tracy is a well-known entity in the self-development industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's how I ended up doing that. No, I had no idea about entrepreneurship growing up. That was not a thing in my family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a great step, isn't it? Like coming from like a not knowing and getting into the business world is like a completely different aspect. And we don't really actually do that in like a school life or college life. We always like be a doctor or engineer. It's always got to do with the career as a job type of
Yes,
thing. But no one actually talk about like you can be a business owner when age 2, 3, or 4, 5.
yes,
It's always the case like being a successful career in a doctor, being an engineer, or like other kind of professional. And probably your parents, what they doing, if they're doing well, then they suggest you to do the same thing, right?
right, right. Well, my parents never influenced that. I think my mom was fortunate enough that she was able to stay home. My dad was a train engineer. He was driving trains across Switzerland,
Mhm.
and but he didn't have an opportunity to continue his education after eighth grade because there was no money, so he had to learn a trade. And
Yeah,
so he regretted that for the rest of his life. For him, it was knowledge in school that was a privilege. And so he instilled all that in all his kids. I have a younger brother and an older sister, and that education is the most important thing. And
yeah.
so his encouragement and his push, that's why I got a BA in business, and that's why I did get my teaching credentials, and later on a master's degree in theology. So that was his influence was along the line of education. That
Mhm.
something that he always said, that's one thing you can never take away from a person. You can steal his money or possessions, but not his
Yeah,
education. You know.
yeah, that's great. So yeah, let's talk about like our topic, which is like a work-life balance. So before our podcast, we talked about like we're going to discuss about work-life balance, which is really close to you, and like you have a lot of expertise on that. Like you teach other people how to have a balanced life and a work life as well. So tell us a little bit about why is work-life balance and how does it actually affect on our life?
So several years ago, I rebranded my business because my coach told me that I needed a brand.
Hmm.
And that's how I came up with my business name, Balance Six.
Right.
And the six we need to balance are time, money, health, relationship, self-improvement, and spirituality or higher power.
Yeah.
When we balance those six, that's when we're at our best. Whether we are a parent, a spouse, a business owner, entrepreneur, or just a human being, you know,
Yeah.
regardless. And so that's now that I have that brand, that's people understand when they go to my website, this is what I'm all about. This is what I believe,
Yeah.
and if people have if they share that belief system or at least some of it, then there's good potential that we can work together.
Hmm.
I strongly believe that the business and the personal life cannot be separated. They're intimately interconnected. If one suffers, it seeps over into the other and vice
Yeah.
versa. You know, and in the U.S. especially, this notion of working more. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. It seems to be a cultural thing.
Yeah.
I think Europe is much better at that than we are here in the U.S. I mean,
Sure.
people frown upon somebody if they only work 40 hours a week.
Mm,
Um, but it's a myth that if you work 12-hour days, you're more productive. They have proven studies that your productivity goes down after 8 hours. They
right.
also have proven studies that if you take a lunch break, you're more productive in the afternoon. Unlike when people who sit at the desk continue working and eat something real quick on the go. You
Right.
know. Um, so what happens when quite often a business owner starts a business for mainly two reasons. One, they want to be their own boss.
Hmm.
Two, they're really good and passionate about something,
Yeah.
which is great. But what happens quite often is that at some point the business starts driving the entrepreneur or the business owner instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
And then that kind of defeats the purpose for starting a business, you know. And so to me, it's critically important that they realize having a successful business and a successful and happy home life can happen. Both is possible. One does not exclude the other.
Right.
And I work with my clients to make that a reality.
Hmm.
Um, so at the end of the day, I want my clients to feel a sense of accomplishment and success, realize that I got my stuff that was really important for me and my business. I got that done. Yes, there's always more to do, but it can
Yeah.
wait till tomorrow. And now is my time with my spouse, with my kids, with my family, or if you're single, just to relax and kick back and
Mm.
enjoy something life giving, something that recharges our batteries.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Like early beginning of my career, like about 4 or 5 years back when I started my marketing agency, used to follow one of the guy, really huge influence on a YouTube like called Valuetainment, and he's like, in order to making a big success, you have to work 80 plus hours. If you're working 40 hours, that's like giving yourself. If you're working 60 hours, then you are just a part timer in order to gain success. And I actually worked about 60 to 80 hours a week, but I didn't get to where I wanted to be. And last year, I probably worked less than my entire life, probably 1 or 2 hours a week because my son and everything is going on and I'm in the hospital and everything. And I had like my bestest month that time, like without me working like too much. I trusted my team. I let back because I had no other opportunity to do that. And I learned like having that kind of like a mindset, it allowed me to earn more money comparing to one just hustling and everything, burning out myself. I felt exhausted. I had a lot of other health issues as well. At the same time, it was affecting my relationship. So it's like a lot of combined things. And you mentioned in US is just a cultural thing. Like if working 60 to 80 hours a week, then you feel like even working you are cast as in like you are a lazy person, right?
Like a part-time, like you said. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
And I think what you just shared is a perfect example. Your body was reacting to the 80 hours a week,
yeah.
and I want my clients to start working on this before the body says, hey, slow down, you
Mm,
know because that's, fortunately, hopefully you're all good and healthy again, but that can lead to all kinds of health issues, and I mean, in the US we have, heart attacks and strokes that are
yeah,
rampant,
yeah,
of course part of it too has to do with a very unhealthy diet and lack of exercise, but a lot of it is too is the stress and the constant work, and not taking a break and not taking care of ourselves. um,
yeah. And in terms of like a European country and like even though UK, like we are like a more chilled out and more laid back compared to the US, even though you're originally from Switzerland. And I know talk to a lot of Swiss people and they're like working less hours compared to UK. They probably trying to do like a 4 hour work week, and most companies are doing that already, and less work a days, and they're more happier than compared to like a US and other parts of the world, and
yes.
lifespan is more than compared to US, right?
Yeah, and that's what it is. And I think what you hit the nail on its head when you talk to people about being happier. If you have
Mm.
a work-life balance, you have a healthy balance, you have a happy home life, well, you're going
Yeah,
to be more productive in your work life. And if an employer recognizes the value that an employee brings to the business and treats them accordingly, that also gets them to work more
yeah,
and harder. They're willing to go the extra mile if they're appreciated and
yeah.
if they're allowed to take time off. That's critically important. I think slowly but surely this whole idea is catching on. And I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, do you think like uh working more or like working tiring yourself up, is it like actually taking you making more money or more success? Do you think that actually is happen, or like do you think like having a balance and how much you can take on certain project actually gonna give you like a better life, earning you more money, more income?
Yes, I mean, I'm sure you've heard that before. Work smarter, not harder. You
Yeah.
know, and yes, maybe it's being abused, but that's the truth to it.
Mm.
The key is we have to prioritize our workload. Everybody has the famous to-do list.
Yeah.
So, you know, Brian Tracy teaches a way of the way to prioritize. He calls it the ABCDE method. And what I usually, so most people are familiar with the to-do list and they write
Right.
it down. So then I usually say, well, now before you start anywhere else, look at things that you can eliminate. That's the E.
Mhm.
What can you kind of scratch off? Because
Right.
we put too much stuff on it.
Yeah.
Then the D stands for delegate. So what can be done by somebody else?
Right.
And that is critically important. Quite often, I recommend to my clients to put a little sticky note on their computer screen that says D or just delegate. You know,
Right.
um, so that they don't do other people's work.
Hmm.
Whatever can be done by somebody else
Yeah.
should be delegated because the business owner usually brings the expertise in one or two areas.
Yeah.
And that's where he or she should focus his or her energy. To
Mm.
illustrate my point is a dentist came to me because his wife was upset with him and said, hey, I'm about ready to leave you if you continue to bring work home.
Yeah.
And people would think, the dentist, how can he bring work home? Well, he came home a briefcase of paperwork,
All
you
right.
know. And so he had to learn to stop micromanaging.
Yeah.
You know, I said, you got trained to fix teeth. That's your specialty, and nobody else can do that in your company, in your business,
Hmm.
but you. So that's all you do. Everything else that it takes to run the business has to be done by somebody else.
Yeah.
Now it took a while for him to catch on, but once he did, not only did he get a happy home life, which is invaluable,
Yeah.
actually see his son, but he also is able to add about 15 to 20 new patients to his practice.
Mm.
So more money, happy home life balance, win-win.
Yeah.
And then the other three components of the ABC that are left, the A items are the critically important tasks, the ones that are have to get done. Otherwise, your business is not going to go anywhere.
Right.
Brian Tracy calls them the frog. Eat that frog. I don't know if you've heard that term before. It has nothing to do with a culinary dish. Okay.
Yeah.
What he's saying is that the biggest, most challenging task should be done first.
Right. Okay.
And what most of us do is we do keep busy with easier stuff because it's
Mm.
easier and we like it better and it's not so daunting. But that means that a task, that frog, is not getting done. And just knowing that affects our productivity.
Yeah.
So if we finish a daunting big task, we feel successful. We feel like $1,000,000. We feel ready to tackle the next thing. It regenerates us, rejuvenates us, and gives us new energy. So
Right.
there's a whole psychological component in that as well. So that's his teaching. A task, don't ever do a B task as long as there's 8 tasks left. B tasks are important, but they're not critical. And C
Right.
tasks, they don't really matter. You know, so
Okay.
that's his way of prioritizing. There's other ways, of course. There's a lot of different ways to do that. This is the method I teach my clients. And then,
Yeah.
of course, there's the 80-20 rule. That's known out there as well.
Yes. So in terms of like this is a mindset thing, right? It's not like a physical thing. We have to like know when we need to have like a work-life balance. This is why the relationship is not working out. Your spouse or partner not happy, kids are not happy in the home, health is not right place, social circle is not in a good shape, a friend circle or family members. And even though they're productive in a workplace, so when someone actually find out like I need to make the change, how the mindset should be, like where they can actually start in order to get work-life balance.
I think the first step is to be open to changing something.
Mm-hmm.
Like the saying goes, you can take a horse to the water, you can't make it drink. You know,
Sure.
so recognizing that something is not working and that it is in my power to change it, but I have to be willing to do things differently. I have to be willing to listen to some advice,
Yeah.
and then, take action. And most of the time, this requires us to step outside our comfort zone,
Mm.
and as you would probably know as well as I do, that's when the growth happens.
Yeah.
When we're willing to step outside our comfort zone, do something different. It may not be comfortable because we've never done it,
Yeah.
but I see that all the time with my clients. Once they step outside the comfort zone, they leave that little bubble that they have been in for so long, then the growth can happen. And so
Right.
that's why we do this in baby steps.
Yeah.
Let's just take one little step at a time. If the a mile is the goal, 1 foot at a time,
Yeah.
1 foot in front of the other. Eventually, we'll get you there. So I encourage my clients to celebrate the little steps that they do take
Mhm.
instead of beating themselves up over what they didn't do.
Right.
Like the stick, the honey or the vinegar, you know, the approach. Um, so it's a key component to recognize something's not working and being willing to change it.
Mm.
Um, and otherwise, there's nothing I can do. You know, uh, so you know, so
So
yeah,
it's
that's
like a self-awareness is like most important thing, right? You have to know like this is the problem and make a adjustment and make the change and be ready for it.
mhm,
And then you can get some other help like yourself, contacting some coaches or consultant, like we can actually guide them and help them in order to plan out themselves. So
yes.
is there any kind of like a balance work life then hours you recommend to someone? Like we have like a lot of business owners, self-employed listeners in here on our podcast episode. Do you think like what's the best like 8 hours, 6 hours a day or like 10 hours a day should be like a right amount of work they can do, so they can spend more time on themselves, on their family, and their social life.
I always like to start where they're currently at.
Mm,
So, for instance, if somebody is currently working 12, 13, 14 hours a day,
yeah.
then it's not realistic to limit it to 8 hours right
Right.
away.
Okay.
So, what I would recommend is that we cut back slowly.
Hmm.
The ultimate goal could be 8 hours a day, 40-hour work week. That could be the ultimate goal.
Right.
But if they're currently working 60 or 80 hours a week, that's not realistic. Then we have to look to the future. When would you, in the ideal world, achieve that goal? So
Right.
we set smart goals.
Yeah.
So, for instance, by the end of 2022, I would like to be working only 50 hours a week.
Mm,
Okay. So in order for this to happen, let's say you're currently working 70 hours a week, and at the end of the year, you want to go down to 50. So then
right.
we have to slowly but surely cut back. Okay. So that means that you create what's called a backward flow chart.
Yeah.
In order to get there by the end of the year, you know, in 6 months you want to be here,
Okay.
and in 3 months you want to be here, and then we work backwards and slowly but surely get there. Otherwise, it happens. Then people beat themselves up. They say,
Yeah.
"Okay, I'm going to only work 8 hours a week," and then they work 10 hours.
Mm,
Now, 10 hours is less than what they were doing before,
yeah.
but it's still more than what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
So instead of feeling successful, they're feeling like they're a failure.
Right.
So you see how that is so critically important. So if you
Yeah.
work 12 hours and you say, okay, my goal is to work only 11,
Mm,
and then you work 10, you feel like $1,000,000. Hey, I actually got better than what I said I was going to do.
yeah.
Okay. But the other way around, then you feel a failure.
So basically, key component, which is like instead of having like a massive goal, you should have a massive goal, but you're chunking it down a small step where you can
Yes.
actually take a small step and feel good about yourself, then take the next step and then feel good about yourself. Then
Yes.
eventually you get there where you want to be, right?
Yes. Like the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
One bite at a
One bite
time.
at a time. Yeah.
you know and it's the same here.
Mm,
And if people feel good about their little baby steps that they're taking, the little progress,
yeah.
that's that's critically important, because if they feel like, oh, it's not going to work anyway,
Yeah.
then they're going to give up. Oh, well, I tried, it's not going to work. you
Mm,
know um but yes, I think the ultimately I'd love to see clients not work more than 8 hours a day,
right.
you know, because we know that the productivity is going down and not up, you
Yeah.
know, and and that's plenty to get the critically important tasks done, and everything else, can wait till the next day, because they need time for themselves.
Hmm.
They need time for their loved ones.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, Warren Buffett says it perfectly. I can buy anything I want in the world except time.
Yeah. It's true.
When that the 24 hour that we all get, when it's over, it's over.
Yeah. And
So
time really flies really, really fast too, especially when you focusing on something or building or something you're creating. And I know that for a fact, like my age between 16 to age of 20, 24, it just flew and I didn't have any clue. And I lost my like a youth time, like we're just working, because that time I was working minimum 80 hours a week because I was in a two jobs, working in a primary school. And then in the evening, I was running my restaurant. And then after that, like I'm running a two businesses at the same time, and I'm just overworked. And in the same time, what actually happened, I got diagnosed with the IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. Like my system is gone really bad, my asthma gone bad, I've gone overweight. Top of the lost connection with friends, lost connection with my family members. I was missing birthdays, weddings, a lot of other good things, and couldn't enjoy my life that much. So come from my little experience, and I know how important the time is. And right now, I just uh, enjoying every moment of my life. It's not about the money; it's about the time. And I know it's how valuable you mentioned. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, and we all have to pay our bills, you know,
Yeah.
and part of it too is I talked to a client about that too. What is your definition of success?
Mhm.
You know, that's really important too. You know, if success means you have to accumulate a lot of stuff
Yeah.
and money, all right, well, you know,
Mhm.
but ultimately, you know, our time in this world is limited, you
Yeah.
know, and when the time is up, we can't take anything of that stuff with us.
Sure.
You know, what we can do is we can create memories,
Yeah.
you know, like what you know, you have a 1 year old.
Yeah.
So you're going to create memories with him that your 1 year old will remember.
Yeah.
You know, your kids don't remember the stuff that we buy them,
No.
but they remember the memories that we create. You know, so that's a lot of things that we did. We have 3 kids, they're all grown now. We did a lot of trips with them, outings, go places, do
Mhm.
things with them. Yes, we bought them presents. Of course, you do that.
Yeah.
But the things that they remember today are those trips, those family outings. They
Yeah.
don't remember the little toy truck or the get this gadget or that gadget that they got. No,
Yeah.
you know, they played with the stuff for a couple months, maybe a little bit longer, and then it was forgotten.
Yeah.
But the memories, you know, the trips, the time together that we spend with them is
Mm.
priceless.
Yeah.
You know, and that again is something that cannot be taken away because those are things that they remember. And
True.
for me to build memories like that with our kids and loved ones, that is so much more important than
Yeah.
anything else. And you know, I don't know how it is in the UK, but I mean, we are an incredible consumer society here. You know, constantly bombarded with all the things we should get and should buy that make us happier and so forth.
Yeah. It's kind of similar, but as not that extent in like US, but we are close enough. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think part of it too is, you know, in certain ways Europe is looking to the U.S. and following their example. You know,
Yeah.
they should copy the good things that the U.S. does, but
Yeah.
the things that they don't do so well, you know, leave out. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you on that. So, yeah, in terms of like, let's say if someone comes to your organization, your company, and they need kind of help that wants to balance their life out, what the steps do you do with your clients in order to achieve them goals? I know you mentioned you take like a small step at a time, but what's the first thing you actually do in terms of like working with them?
So if a listener, for instance, feels like they would like to learn more about what it would take to work with me,
Yeah.
then they can contact me for a complimentary business breakthrough session.
Mhm.
Okay. That's usually about 45 minutes to an hour via Zoom.
Right.
And during that time, we talk about, you know, what it is that they would love to accomplish, you know,
Mm.
realistically. And then we talk about what's holding them back.
Yeah.
And then I explain, you know, how working with me can change that. I see myself as the bridge between where they are to where they want to go. You
Mhm.
know, they're here and they want to go here. And I'm the bridge. I'm the way to help them to go from here to here. You know,
Right.
coaching is a long-term process. It's not a quick fix. And I know we all live in an instant gratification society, but that's not how it works. You know, most people been doing something for a long time, years, sometimes decades. So it takes time to unlearn that stuff that has not worked and
Yeah.
learn new things, you know, and that takes time.
Yeah.
That's why I tell my clients, you know, but I usually ask them, how long have you experienced those challenges that they're currently going on in your life?
Mhm.
And most of them tell me years, sometimes decades. And
Yeah.
that's why I say to them, you know, it's going to take time, you know, but the more diligently that you practice the things I recommend, the sooner you see results, you
Mm.
know. So in between sessions, they're given homework, but people don't like the term homework.
Yeah.
So I call them practices.
Okay.
My motto is what we learn, we practice, what we practice, we become. You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
When you look back, when you learned how to drive a car, you know, I learned on a stick, so I had to figure out the clutch. I had to stop and go on a hill.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I stalled the car. I had to learn to parallel park, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now it's second nature. I don't even think twice about it. It's just an autopilot.
Automatically happens. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's how it is when you learn something, you do it over and over and over again. It's the same when you in my coaching practice. If you practice those things, eventually those things become a habit.
Yeah.
But until they do, you have to put it on your calendar. You have to block time for those things.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Christoph, thank you so much for giving us valuable time of yours. And we have learned
Pleasure.
so many things from you. And yeah, we're running out of time for this podcast. So, those who are listening, if anyone wants to reach out to you, work with you, where's the best place to find you and your company?
The easiest way to do that is on my website.
Okay.
The website is balance6.biz. So the word balance, the number 6.biz, B-I-Z. And there I have blog posts with lots of information. I have a link to my YouTube channel with my podcast where I have 15 to 20-minute episodes where I address a lot of these things. They can also get my Amazon best-selling book called From No Time to Free Time, 6 Steps to Work-Life Balance for Business Owners. They can also get that from my website. And they have contact information, how to reach me. They can actually book an appointment right there from my website.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for your information. I really appreciate it. So yeah, I wish you good luck with your business, your career, and your life, and you have a wonderful year. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, and all the best to you and your family as well.
You're most welcome. I appreciate it. So yeah, that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. So you know how to find Mr. Christoph. Go find out about himself and his company. Go and visit his website. Also find him on social media platform as well. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and talk to you in the next episode. Thank you, everyone.